Hey guys, it's Anthony Bandier here, attorney for Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing you the roadside chat. This is a very good question. The officer is talking about Miranda and interviewing somebody at the police station. This is a officer in Illinois, so let's kind of go through the scenario. All right, he writes here. He says, can you provide some explanation to Miranda requirements when a suspect agrees to come to the PD, police department, for an interview and it takes place in a recorded room? So at the beginning of the interview, the officer tells the suspect he is not under arrest and he is free to leave the interview room at any time. Is Miranda still required? So he says, look, my department is investigating a stolen automobile where the evidence is looking like the victim made a false report and actually said that his vehicle was stolen by somebody else. The evidence is actually indicating that he made his false report. Maybe a lot of these times, this is where people drive drunk and for whatever reason they get stuck or they crash or whatever. They ditch the car and they say it was stolen, right? So if we schedule an interview with the guy to come talk to us at the station and he drives himself there, not brought in handcuffs, not in the back of the police car, and we tell him very clearly he is not under arrest, he is free to leave if he wants to. Can we interview him without Miranda? So in my experience, reading Miranda can cause a person to clam up, right? That's basically what the officer is saying, and we don't want this guy to invoke. We want to hear what he has to say. All right, so some ground rules here. When is Miranda required? When do you have to read Miranda and get a waiver if you want to interrogate him? You have to have three things in place at the same time. Number one is you have to have arrest like custody. That's going to be the biggest issue here, right? Do you have arrest like custody? And that's from a reasonable person's perspective, not what they say. It's what a reasonable person believes that the environment is the same as if they were like under arrest and being interviewed and so forth. And the answer is no here. Right? I mean, obviously it's not going to be black and white because you are at a police station. I understand that. And I also understand, wanting to be cautious, but that person is not under arrest. I mean, they're the opposite of under arrest. Just because it happens at the police station does not mean that they're under arrest. They're not in handcuffs. They're not, they're told that they can leave at any time. I would like them to be closer to the door. You got to be, you can limit other things like how many people do you have in a room. It'd be nice if they were detectives with suit jackets on and the gun is kind of hidden, things like that. The tempo of the conversation is more like an interview, not a, tell me why you did it type stuff. I mean, it could be like that, but still, they're not in custody. And I'll tell you, the biggest indicator of not in custody, are you listening to this? I'll tell you the biggest piece of proof of whether or not they're in custody is allowing them to leave. I have seen cases where this guy was like suspected of murder and he basically confessed in around, I mean, either confessed or made some admissions, but the cops still let him go and they picked him up later with an arrest warrant. And the court found that that was part of the proof that when he made his admissions, he was not in custody because he was also allowed to leave. So if you don't arrest him ultimately, how can the court then come back and say, well, I mean, they can, but it's harder for the court to come back and say, well, he still was in custody, even though he was not in handcuffs, even though he was told free to leave, even though he was told bathroom breaks and given coffee and so forth and treated in a respectful manner. The next thing you need is not only in custody, but you also need interrogation. You need to be asking questions that are likely, foreseeably going to elicit an incriminating response. Clearly, that's what's going on here. Why did you, whatever the questions are, why did you call the police after, 3 hours passed by when you knew the car was stolen type stuff. And then finally, it has to be a known officer. Miranda does not apply to undercover officers. It does not apply to cellmates. It does not apply to undercover officers pretending to be a cellmate. Now, the Sixth Amendment could apply if the person's been indicted or formally arraigned, but generally speaking, just being booked into jail is not the Sixth Amendment. That's the Fifth Amendment. So, going back to our scenario here, clearly this person, I should say clearly, but you don't have to read Miranda based on these factors. In fact, there's actually a Supreme Court case on this issue. So um, the case is Oregon versus Mathiason. It's a 1977 case, and the court said here, as the Supreme Court explained, Miranda warnings are not required simply because the questioning takes place in the station house or because the questioned person is whom the police suspect. Okay, so Oregon versus Mathiason, there's your case. It's a very good question. I can tell you, I understand both sides of this. You talk to a state's attorney in Illinois, they're going to be like, well, just read a Miranda because, quite frankly, they don't want to have any issues. They want their job to be a little easier. But let's also know what the law is, right? The law does not require Miranda, even though it might be nice to have. All right? All right. Hope this helped. If you have any questions for me, leave in the comments. Visit bluetogold.com. If you like what we're doing around here, like, subscribe, share with your friends. And until next time, my friends, you stay safe.